Okay, I'm making some magneto GIFs, and I need to replace this dish. Now the easiest way to do this, thankfully the folks see, here's a glimpse of what I'm doing. Thankfully the folks that did the effects on the original film had some constraints too, and so this area in the scene is pretty much static. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rebuild it. A tree line, a hill line to go behind the upvote, and then a skyline. We're going to do this the easy way by making some plates in Photoshop. So you can see here, this is our far shot. See? What I've done is I've got a foreground or a tree line that's approximate enough. Then I've got some hills, and of course I've got a fake sky where I've filled everything in. And underneath here, all of it, I've got just a reference copy. So let's close out some of this crap that I've got open. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take our original scene here. This is going to be our far shot D. This is our last shot. And this is the one where he's spinning it. Now, I may or may not include the spinning it, but whatever. That's not the point of this tutorial. So what we want to do is we want to make a new comp from that. Let's rename it here really quick to pre-far shot D. Now, what we want to do is we want to find our time here. Notice my original source is like 1080, and I'm reducing it down. I'm doing this with AE because the output's better and I can save smaller files. Anyway, what we want to do is we want to find our in and out. So let's get approximate first here. Yeah, you may notice there's the face that I made. Couldn't resist that. Alright. I'm going to trim the comp work area so we can see our frames a little easier. Pretty good there. One too many. Oh yeah, I fucked it up. We're going to undo that. And we're going to go back some different frames. Go back to where we were at. Include a little more because I was sloppy. Now we're going to trim comp to work area and I'm still plugging it up. We're going to edit this part out. And go back further because I cut a bunch of it out like a fool. All right. So here we're going to find our endpoints, and be sure to include a little extra from the beginning and end. Trim it. Now, we want to find our first frame, so we can do our fine-tune trimming. Go there. There's our first frame of the infamous face. And we're going to go there. Let's go in the middle and trim it. Now, we've got our little turn, okay? What we want to do is we want to grab one frame from this. We're going to go to Composition, we're going to save frame as file. It's going to try and put it in the same directory that I was last in, so if you have been changing it around, then double check it, but I'm going to render. Yay, render sound. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and find it. There's our far shot D plate. I'm going to open this up in Photoshop. So, you may be thinking like, okay, I can key this, I could do a whole bunch of different things to it, but what we're going to do is we're just going to make some simple alpha masks. So we're going to convert this to a normal layer and we're going to dupe it. Non-destructive editing. Always save your previous versions. Okay, what we want to do is we want to adjust the brightness and contrast of this to really get that tree line to pop a little bit. First plate we're going to do is the tree line because we're going to build the others off of it. So, you notice in this region right here, where the base of the dish is. It's a little distorted, you know, like we're going to include some of that if we just move this to black and white right now. So we're going to do a couple passes of brightness and contrast. First I want to just get it to pop a little bit. Then we're going to do it again. And we're going to pump that contrast way up. And then we're just going to find some sweet spots in the brightness where we can go in and do some fine tuning a little bit. Okay, so that should be pretty good for that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to desaturate it. This is giving us more of our alpha mask now. We're going to invert it here in a minute, but first I want to do some fine tuning on it. So the easy instinctual way to do this is to grab your brush tool and just start like digging around. But there's a simple trick. Grab your paint bucket, make sure that your tolerance is set to like 1 or 2. Opacity is going to be 100%. And what we're going to do here is we're going to just go fill in our areas that we know we don't want to include. And we're going to do that with white for the moment because we're inverted still. So what you do is you just start going in here, clicking around, and you make your own little tree line. And you can do it by kind of tracing along everything without having to do like a weird, you know, color selection or something funky like that. And you can really get in here. If you click multiple times inside the middle spot, then you're going to end up including some of that, and it'll just fill in a little bit more, make your border a little thicker. You don't want to use this like it's a brush. You want to just click, so we're just tapping in several spots. And what we're doing is, make sure contiguous is on. That way you're not just like filling in all over the place. You want to make sure that you're filling in little spots here as you go. You're painting it, kind of. Painting it, splatter painting it, I guess. So, I'm probably going to fast forward through some of this, because it's really boring. Alright, so now we've done a bunch of that, clicking around and dicking around. Okay, this side over here ended up being okay. We're going to leave it the way it is. We'll clean it up a little bit here. So now what we're going to do, now we're going to grab our brush tool, and now we're going to make sure we got a nice hard edge on it. You can use the shift square brackets to adjust the hardness, and just use the square brackets alone to adjust the brush size. So we're going to get rid of some of this junk out in the wasteland of nowhere that we don't want. And, oops, wrong direction. And clean this up, and you'll see that we have like a nice kind of randomish, natural-looking-ish tree line. You don't want to get overzealous cleaning it up. This is just an approximation. We just need it to trick the human eye. We don't need to make it like scientifically accurate or anything. So feel free to be a little sloppy. The more random it looks, actually, the more natural it looks. You'll see some spots down here, like where I didn't fill in right, that I'm going to just go and clean up and touch up really quick. So, we've got a funky looking tree line. Oh, we've got a little bit of dish out in the middle of space here. You can barely see me. Alright, getting rid of that. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we are going to invert this image, adjustments, invert. Now we've got this negative image. We're going to Control A to select all, Control C to copy it, and we're going to duplicate our clean plate here, our bottom, background layer, and we're going to hide this thing because we don't need it anymore for the moment. We're going to go to Layer, Layer Mask, and Reveal All. This will add a layer mask. Now, you want to go to your channels. You want to turn on that layer mask really quick. Turn off RGB. Make sure it's got selected. Now you can paste. And what you've done is you've pasted it into the alpha mask for that layer. Go back to RGB. Go back to this. And what we're going to do here is we're going to slap in like a new adjustment layer here with some hue saturation, just so we can tell the difference between our other layers. Let's go ahead and skew the hue to blue. All right, and we're going to increase some saturation on it. All right. So you notice that it looks altogether fucked up right now. The reason for that is if we turn things off, we've still got our kind of gray areas in here and our midtones in some of the spots because it's just a copy of the photo. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our channels, we're going to turn this off, and we're just going to go in and paint in the things that should be there. We could be a little sloppy here because all we want to preserve is really that little border area here. We're going to, in After Effects, use a mask to just keep the rest of the action the way it is. So here we go. Make sure we've got our white now because that is our keep it foreground color, and we're just going to just blob this everywhere. We can go ahead and even like include a little bit of sky if we want to. We do not have to be precise here, except for when we get close to our tree line. Okay, I'm going to zoom in. That's Control plus, Control number pad plus. Sorry. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I've softened the edge of my brush a little bit here. I'm going to get a little bit smaller. Okay, I'm going to add a little tiny bit of hardness. Yeah, there we go. And just kind of get up here next to this tree line. It's okay if a little tiny bit of it kind of creeps out and glows out. It should be fairly clean. One thing that we are concerned about is, like you may have just seen right there, I filled in a spot where the colors of the trees were actually dark. It's kind of hard to tell some of your borders, like we see this hole right here, we want to preserve that hole. You just got to get kind of an instinct for it. Some practice will get you there. Sometimes around these spots, what I'll do is I'll increase the brush size so I get a little bit bigger of a blur on the outside of it, and go in there and just adjust it out. So here we go. A little bit more in bulk, because I know I'm going to be masking some of this out here. Now usually what I'll do is I'll leave myself kind of like a marker for the border here, just so in After Effects when I'm looking at it, I know where to put my mask at, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a line like right there. And I know that my mask should be somewhere beyond this with its feather. Okay, now get rid of this side. See how this is all like really kind of too dark here, and it'll just end up like removing a bunch of the color. We want to get rid of areas like that. Oops, I did too much here. You notice there's some peekaboo spots, and I did not keep them in because I fucked up. Okay. Some of these, actually some of these I am going to fill in. They're a little bit too deep in, but you'll notice in like these areas here, I've got some really close, tight-knit peekaboos. I'm just going to go get around them a little bit, just to make sure that the color is preserved when we turn back on our color channels. Okay. Cleaning up the masking. And this is our most complex area over here. Now we're going to do another round of cleanup here in a second, but only once we've got our sky plate ready to go too. Okay. So, get some more bulk stuff done, get some more of the easy areas done. And I'm just using the, you can probably hear me clicking it, I'm just using the square brackets to increase and decrease the brush size. Right now I'm kind of at a midway in hardness. No, that sounds weird. My brush has chubby going on. Yeah, I'm just kind of just winging it. Not really trying to be too precise. Oh, I messed up a little tiny line in there. One thing to remember with the brush tool is you want to take shorts, kind of intentional strokes. It's really easy to get wrapped up in the idea that you should take like one big long stroke that's perfect. And if you screw it up and you have to undo, then you have to redo that whole bit. Better to take some short strokes that you can easily undo. Even though the undo key only goes back one level, you can always go back to your history and like pick spots and just drag them to the trash here and delete them. and that can take you back like quite a few steps. So if you've just been tapping, you can clean that up still and not have to do any truly destructive editing. Oh, speaking of destructive editing, one of the reasons we're not using an eraser tool for this and we're using a mask is so we don't have to really kind of mess up our color plate. Underneath this, we're going to be applying it to just a straight up copy. We don't want to get into having to deal with all that detail. This gives us a way that we can reverse back out if we screw up, and we can easily toggle it on and off. When in doubt, use an alpha mask instead of erasing your layer. All right, this is looking good. We've got a little blah space over here we don't need, and screw it, we can just kind of fill this in. All right, so we kind of know our area of interest here. We're going to go back to our channels, and we're going to turn back on RGB and take a look at what we've got. We've got this cut up, kind of tree line here. So far, it's doing good. You see, there's some weird spots here where like back his head is in. And one of the reasons that I am keeping all of this stuff intact is because it gives me reference points later on if I need to adjust things or line things up. Just something handy, like like non-destructive editing. Don't do it unless you have to. Okay, so at this point, we're going to call this tree line, and we're going to save it, and we're going to go ahead and start getting it together in AE. We're going to grab our 4-shot D, and we are going to drag this in. Now, when prompted, we're going to choose a layer, and we're going to choose the tree line layer by itself, because we want to have these in stages and put the upvote in between a couple of them. So we're just going to flop this in. Should fit nice and perfect. Oops, except I didn't drag it all the way. Put our normal thing behind it. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of do the same thing we did in Photoshop. We're going to go here and do some color correction, hue saturation, because we can delete this later, because AE is just straight up non-destructive most of the time. And we're just going to adjust things out so we've got just like some way to see where we're at and what we're doing. So it's not looking too bad so far. The hill over here is looking good. The area that we want to put the upvote in is looking great. Okay, so now we got to go back and make our sky flake. We're going to save this really quick, and we're going to get back to our project tab because we're going to need it in a second. Now, this is the interesting part. We don't have to go back and like paint everything all over again for the sky flake. What we're going to do is we're going to duplicate our tree line layer. We're going to call this sky. Best to name it right away, that way we can keep track of things. Now, what we're going to do is go to our channels, turn on the alpha, turn off RGB again, and we're going to select all, image, adjustments, and invert. And we've got a sky suddenly behind there. Now, the sky is going to match a little bit too closely with, and I'm going to Control D to unselect everything here. Too closely with where our tree line is. We want it to kind of sit behind the tree line. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a clone stamp tool to get rid of the satellite dish there. So what we're going to do is we're going to paint in just a little bit more like beyond the border here. We're just going to make sure that it bleeds down below where our tree line is, because it's a background plate. We want it to be in the background, and we want it to fill in all the background without any disturbance. Okay, so now we're going to go over here. We've got our RGB selected again. Go back to our layers, and we're going to turn off our tree line. And now what we see here is we've got this funky like chunk of it floating out of nowhere. We're going to grab our clone stamp tool. Flow is at 100%, opacity is 100%. What I'm going to do is I'm increasing my brush size again, and I'm going to make sure that I have got like way soft brush. Now, as you get softer, it'll look smaller. As you get harder, the edges will get bigger and the circle will get bigger. And then shift in the square brackets again. So, I want to make sure I've got kind of a soft edge for it. I'm going to bring my opacity down here to about 70%-ish. Okay, and I'm going to hold down Alt and select my area that I want to like take everything from. make sure that you have a line turned off because it'll give you a little bit more random of effect, and as you click and go back, you're continuing from the same exact spot. It's not moving your target along with you. So I'm just going to go in here and just start messing around and filling this in. Don't have to have it be too exact at the moment. And you notice, as I've got this here, my little target is lower than where my brush is. If I'm moving upward, that's a great way to go. If I'm moving downward, I will do the same, but make sure it moves down. And I'm just getting rid of this thing. Okay, so I've got my clouds here, puffy little clouds. I'm going to decrease the brush size so I can get more of this just color. And one of the reasons why I went like with a smaller opacity is so it just blends a little bit better as you go along. Now you notice I'm getting rid of some of this tree line here. That's because this is our background again. We want it to fill in. So we're getting rid of the trees too. Getting rid of as much of this border area as we can. Good old Magus over here can get filled in pretty quickly. It doesn't really matter what he's filled in with too much. There you go, Magneto. Go and destroy a planet. Okay, we're going to do the same thing over here to kind of clean this up and kind of blend things a little. It doesn't have to be too precise, just enough to trick the human eye. Now, you notice I'm not too worried about tree line over in this area, and that's because, let's go ahead and decrease our opacity a little bit. That's because we've still got to do our hill plate, so I'm more worried about where this border of the hills will be, but we haven't made that yet, so we can't really apply too much to it yet. Okay, you notice I decrease the opacity here so I can get some like kind of blending strokes going along in here, make this look a little bit more natural. And then I'm going to do the same up here, just to make this look like it's just kind of acting like clouds. We've got a little tiny bit of a shadow here. I'm just going to go and pick some of this area that's got like some of the randomness in it. I'm going to fill that in too. The upvote, thankfully, will be covering most of this area, so we don't have to get too detailed. Again, just magician tricking the eye. Okay. So let's turn on, yep, we need to make sure this is beneath our tree line. Turn on our tree line. And now you notice we've got this like blotted out area. It's looking pretty clean, it's looking pretty good. Again, it's a brief moment inside an animated GIF, so it doesn't have to be super perfect, but we do have to fill in our hill. Let's go ahead and add our tree line, or our sky, to After Effects first. So we go over here, we drag the same exact file over again, but this time, when we get prompted again, we're going to pick a different layer. We're going to pick our hill, which we didn't save. Ha! So go back to Photoshop, hit save. Now we've got our sky in there. Okay, so let's drag this bad boy back over. Get prompted. Choose layer, sky, hit OK. Drag it into our comp, and we're going to put it beneath the tree line. There we go. So it's starting to come together. At this point, got our far shot D file. We can go ahead and toss this into our full comp all together and get it in position. And this will give us an idea of how good we're doing and how much we're screwing up. Now, I happen to know that I've reduced everything here to 37.5%. Stay consistent when you're reducing, and just give yourself a memorable number and life will be better. Okay, so we've got this, and now these guys are stagnant. They're no longer doing anything. We want to change that, so what we're going to do is we're going to toss a little mask around this and just keep our kind of center of interest here. Doesn't really matter how jagged it is or anything yet, because we're going to feather the hell out of it. What did I do there? There we go. Now we close the loop and get back down to here and feather. Okay. If we you can't notice it, that's a good sign. I'm watching this area right here. Remember I left that border, and I masked somewhere near the border. So I can kind of see what's going on a little bit, see how much blending is there. I just want it just not noticeable enough. Okay, now what we're going to do is we are going to kind of get this to where our original is over here a little bit. And it's looking pretty convincing so far. Not altogether bad. The thing we are going to do is we're avoiding this pond. The trees are blurry, so the trees are going to be a better spot to have things blend at. It's a little bit more random than the sheen of the water, so we're going to take advantage of that. Thankfully, this plate won't move, but now our guys do. So, boom, there we go. We got this thing kind of working so far. We need to add in our hill, and we need to add in our upvote. That's not part of this tutorial. This is how to do just your general, well, let's do the hill. This is so far looking good. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take our tree line again. We're going to duplicate that. This gets kind of easy. Now, our tree line is in front of the hill, so tree line goes on top. We're going to rename this to hills. And our sky, of course, is at the very back. This is in kind of like Z-index order, the order that you see them. Now, our hills are a copy of the trees. What we're going to do is we're just going to go paint them in. This is going to be pretty simple because we only have to do a small area of this. Now you notice once you zoom in here, things get kind of ugly. Don't worry about it. The scaling that we've done from going from 1080 to 720 helps that. Helps out a ton. So now what we're going to do is grab our mask. We're going to make sure we got a decently hard brush. Now you can see, now that I have this tool selected, you can see the white here. You can see, so Shift plus the rightmost square bracket will harden the brush. Shift plus the leftmost square bracket will soften it. Okay, so we want a nice hard one because, well, it's better that way. We want to make these edges like we have for the tree line, where they're distinct, where we're not blurring too much. If we wanted to blur like that, we could have tried some mask trickery or something, and just get sloppy. Okay, now we don't want our clone stamp tool, we want our regular brush. Make sure it's hard, and we're just going to start painting in where we want the hills. Notice what I'm doing first is I'm just kind of revealing where the border of the hills are, and making sure that the inside of them are filled in. Hold down space and drag, and you've got your pan tool, and you can move stuff around really easy without having to use the scroll bars on the side. Okay, just going through here and finding the border of my hill line. Now when it comes to in front of this big base, this big installation here, I'm going to just wing it. What I'm doing is I know that the hills will somehow like meet from here to here. And I know that the hills also, see it peaked out right here. We know it's going to kind of meander from here to here. So we don't have to worry about that too much. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the sky. I'm going to turn on my very bottom layer again that has the hue and saturation adjustment layer over it, so I can see what's going on here. Now, this is probably the coolest trick, and will help you a bunch in the future. I'm going to double click on this, and I'm going to go and add a stroke to it. Now, I want to make this stroke nice and distinct, so I'm going to color it red, and what you can see, and make sure it's 1 pixel wide, what you can see is the border of where everything's at. And you notice some places it's thicker, some places it's softer. That's because it's showing the gradient that's there. And you notice our tree line isn't perfect yet either. We're going to go ahead and go over here and copy layer style, and we're going to paste it on our tree line here. And yeah, we see we've got some funk to clean up in here. We're going to turn that effect off for the moment. But we also know that, like, our hill doesn't need all of this over here. We want it to sit behind the trees, just like the sky did. So what we're going to do is we're going to we're going to make sure that we have the alpha channel for it selected, alpha channel for hill, and we're just going to, and make sure that we've got the black selected. We're just going to get rid of some of this stuff. And you'll notice our little border like disappears behind it. Lets us know like where our real edge is. Since you're doing non-destructive editing, like all this stuff is pretty simple to keep that way and use as tools later on to help yourself out. You've got that same situation going on over here. We don't really need all this. So let's just make sure that none of the gradient of it is like getting included. Make sure that that edge is nice and clean. Since we've got our edge right here, we're cool. And now that we've still got the black selected, we're going to go to a smaller brush. We're going to give it, so we've got maximum hardness right now, and we're going to give it just one dink to soften it. And we're going to Control plus, zoom in a little bit, and get rid of this and make our border fake hills. Yes. Okay. Get rid of this. Just get rid of all the little white spots that are peeking out, and then the rougher this looks, the more natural it's going to look. Nature is kind of random. Some spots, if you end up getting too much, that's easy. Just go back here, change your foreground to your background color, and just fill it back in. Any spots that are dangling like this, we want to get rid of. Little things jutting out, because we want this to be a nice clean edge. Okay. Notice that I'm going a little bit behind where the tree is here. I want it to still have that effect of being behind the trees. So I'm kind of cutting the trees where they overlap out too. Or actually where they don't overlap, excuse me. Okay, go through in some of this again. Back to removing stuff. I'm just doing this really rough. It only has to match approximately. It's one of the keys to creative output is learning how to finish things. And learning how to finish things means knowing when to obsess over something and when not to. This is a couple moments in a GIF. I'm not going to obsess. Now, there's a little like tower back here. I'm trying to preserve a little bit of that as I go. So I'm just kind of messing around. Let's see how that works out. Hopefully I'm not like on a border or anything with it, so I don't have to worry about it too much. I think this little bit here is tree line. There's another good example of just approximating. I'm guessing that's tree line. And since my tree line was a little bit more detailed, if it wasn't, it will be covered by it because the tree line is more the focus, being the foreground. Okay. Almost got this. And then we'll have our 3 plates ready to go. And I guess I might as well, since I'm still recording, show you putting in the 3D element. To do that, I'm going to clone one that I've got from the others, so I can keep them kind of ideally the same scale, the same size. Let that peek through. This, I think, I'm not buying that that's tree anymore. I'm thinking that's hill. You see, here I am obsessing and I'm wasting time. Forget it, not obsessing. This little, that was the thing. Okay, that's tree line. I can probably include a little bit more of that chunk and get rid of a little bit more of the border around it. Okay, now we've still got this chunk of base of thing stuck in here. And what we're going to do with that is, now that we've got our alpha channel, we're going to select our RGB channel here over in our layers panel. Notice the difference here. I'm clicking on the alpha, or I'm clicking on the RGB channel itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the clone stamp again, just like we did the sky. It's at maximum hardness. We want to soften that up a little bit. We want to make it way smaller. And what we're going to do is we're just going to smear around some of this color from the hills and get rid of the dish. Again, nature being pretty much random. We need some more opacity on this. Let's really get into it. Let's go 65-ish. Nature being random helps us here. You know, if it's got a little bit of variation and weirdness to it, that's all the better. We can take some from the area that's over here on the other side and for some color variation and just fill that in. Make sure that we don't have anything too stark poking out. And we're just kind of making it look random, tree-like. I like this little like in-between edge here. I'm going to use some of that and just go in and fill in. Doesn't have to be perfect again. We just want the effect. And most of this is going to be covered up by that upvote anyway. This is just for completeness sake in a lot of ways. If you didn't have anything like the big upvote, you would want to clean this up anyway. We've got some bushiness going on here. People with dirty minds are going to have a field day with this video. We're just going to just make sure it's more greenery. It doesn't have to be great. It's nature. Nature is random. Okay. Let's pull some from over here where we've got more detail. And let's make the brush a little more opaque. Make sure we've got like completely soft, big limp brush. And we're just going to paint in some of the detail from over there. Because we can. Notice that it makes it look a little more realistic. And it's just totally crazily random. Yeah, doesn't have to be great. Oops. Okay. Now we're going to go from where we painted in detail and just paint it a little more. Boom! Instant hills. I'm going to turn off the effects for that. So, and make sure that our skyline is on again. And look at that. It's looking great so far. Save everything. Go back to After Effects. Drag on our file one last time. This time, of course, we're going to be grabbing our layer called Hills. Going back here, and where was I at? There's our comp. Going to be dragging that between the tree line and the skyline. Boom, hill line. There we go. Not looking too bad. And if we go back to this and take a look around, yeah, we're doing pretty good there. It's looking like it belongs pretty for the most part. Let's go ahead and collapse some of this down, clean up a little, and look at it without the mask selected. Yeah, that's looking convincing. That's all it needs to do is look convincing. Okay, now what I'm going to do is, you notice I've got a couple of these already placed. There's a nice big one that's turning. It's starting to turn and it's starting to change color. I'm going to go to this layer, our far shot C, Reddit. Doing image versions too, but I didn't bother naming it for now. Okay. What I've got is this upvote. Okay. I'm going to go into this comp and I'm going to copy these. And because I'm animating parts of it, I'm going to just copy them by themselves. I'm going to put them into a new pre-comp in a minute. But for now, I'm just going to get them into far shot D. And I want to make sure that my cursor or my timeline here is at the beginning, so it gets all the animation in. But I'm going to, for the most part, be discarding that animation. And I want to make sure that their length matches the rest. And what the hell did I do? Oh, it's not. It's a different position. It's not scaled yet. I will get there. Now, what I want to do is pre-compose them now that I've got them pasted into this. We're going to call that without the semicolon, far shot devote. Boom. Now we're going to open that bad boy up. The reason we did this is because to scale it, we're going to move it around pretty easily, and we want to adjust these things that I've got animated together. Now what I've done is, this is element 3D. I've animated the particle rotation here. Boop, the Y rotation, And what I want to do is I want to pick up where I left off. So what we're going to do is get rid of these first two keyframes here and make sure that our last keyframe is now our first keyframe. This is so we can match the animation of the other one. You'll notice I also have some opacity here on this top layer. This is it turning from a downvote to an upvote. We're going to animate that too, but again, we want to pick up where we left off. We don't want to like make it jump or anything like that. So we're going to make our last key our first key again. And finally, we're going to go back to Element 3D, go back to our group, go back to Particle Look, go back to, oh geez, my goodness, there are a lot of layers inside this. And we're going to go here and do the same Y rotation one more time. Okay. We've got this ready to animate the rest of the way. We're going to go a little further out here. And I'm just eyeballing it because I don't really care. Well, hold on. Yeah, let's do this. I have in our Farshot D, we're going to just copy that video, and we're going to paste this guy in here, and it's going to end up somewhere random. Okay, we're going to collapse all this stuff down for a second. Put that on here, go back, and get rid of our hue saturation funk. That way we can kind of line this up where we wanted it to be. And so we've got kind of an idea of like what our animation is going on inside the video itself. So we're starting to turn from there. It turns, and it doesn't really like, it doesn't pause, but it slows down a tiny bit. So we're going to get away with doing a couple of keyframes here. Let's open these back up. I said open. And here's a trick. We're going to select that one, select our opacity, holding down Control. So Control click, and we've got, notice both of these selected. We're going to go down here and get our other rotation, Control click again, hit S twice. And now we've just got these visible. Gives us more of an idea of what we're doing. We're going to go all the way to the end here. And we want our opacity on this to end up being 100% by the time we get to the end. Because we want this thing turning into an upvote. But let's give it a few frames of just solid upvote too. So we're going to go here, and yeah, that's looking pretty good. It's creeping in color, and then it stays that color. Okay, the rotation we want to be a little bit better. I'm just going to click and drag. Oh, oops, wrong direction. Click and drag, and yeah, get it kind of more pointed at them. I want it to feel like it's speeding up a little bit, so I'm hoping that the curve of this kind of accelerates from the previous shot. That's at 22 degrees. We're going to make sure that our underneath one matches it so we don't get anything peeking out the sides. Okay, and let's take a look at how we got here. That's not looking too bad. I want it more to ramp the animation here though, so I'm going to put like a key kind of, let's put it like right around where this went up. Okay, so we know we're at 32 here, and we want to get down to 22, but we want to accelerate a little bit more. So let's go to 36 degrees is how much it's going to move rotated by this point. And let's see, we get it. It gets a little, yeah, it gets a little push at the end, just ever so slightly. All right, now let's take a look at how it looks here. Oh, and we haven't repositioned this guy yet in our Farshot. Let's go back to Farshot D. And what we're going to do, the reason we pre-compose this is so we can scale it how we want to. We're going to click the edge and start scaling, and then we're going to hold shift while we're doing that, and that'll scale it up proportionally. And what we're going to do now is, oops, in our vote, we're going to get rid of that background thing, so we've just got the upvote in there. Woohoo, it's starting to fit in a little bit better. And I happen to know, like, where I eyeballed this thing in. It's kind of being cradled by these two trees right here, and I kind of know that it should scale to fit that. So yeah, I just picked some landmarks and just made sure that I'm sticking with them. Oops, I always hold down shift first. Remember, when you're rescaling stuff like that, you want it to be proportionally. Start dragging, then shift. Okay. And that looks It doesn't have to be perfect again. It's just a kind of a glance. So let's see what we got. Yeah, turns, get the first shot. Yeah, that's looking good. Okay. Now what we do is we get rid of this guy because we don't need it. We've got this all ready to go. Our sky's looking great. We're going to turn back on our sky and our hills. Yeah, that's looking solid. And boom. We've got an upvote that turns it from afar. And there we go.